Hello, come closer. Sit here with me for a moment. You know, my son, my daughter. Today's world is so noisy, isn't it? So much light, so much rush, that we even forget to listen to the silence. But it's in the silence, in the deepest darkness, that sometimes God decides to whisper his greatest secrets. The story I'm going to tell you today. Oh, this story, it begins in the dark. It begins in the small town of Vale Sereno, a place nestled among the mountains, where time seemed to move more slowly. And in the heart of this town, in a simple little house smelling of jasmine and cornmeal cake, lived Dona Benedita. Benedita was one of those souls who seemed to have been woven from threads of patience, and she needed patience. Oh, how she needed it. For 30 years, ever since a high fever robbed her of her sight when she was still a young girl, Benedita hadn't seen the sun. Her world was made of textures, the worn wood of her rocking chair, the rough cotton of the rosary beads her fingers wouldn't let go of, the warmth of her grandchildren's faces as they approached to ask for a blessing. 30 years. Can you imagine what that's like? 30 years waking up in the same endless night. 30 years listening to the world blossom, watching her children grow, and then her children's children, just by the sound of their voices. The change in tone, the firmness of their steps. She knew each one by their scent, the way they breathed. But their eyes held only the memory of a blue she no longer knew if it was real or a dream. And for 30 years, Benedita prayed. Her prayer wasn't a lament, no. It was a conversation. Every single day before the rooster crowed, she would sit in her chair and the conversation would begin. My God, my Father, I don't ask you for the world. I just want to see, just one more time. I want to see the smile of my grandson, Joãozinho. I want to see the color of that jasmine flower that perfumes my window. I want to see my Antonio's face, even if it is now marked by time like my hands. Her pain wasn't the pain of blindness, you know. It was the pain of missing what she'd never seen. It was the emptiness of not being able to participate in simple things. When the town gathered for the patron saint's feast, she heard the fireworks, smelled the popcorn, but couldn't see the colors in the sky. When her grandson brought a drawing from school, she ran her fingers over the paper, smiled, and said, "How beautiful, my son." But her heart ached. The doctors had already given the final word decades ago. Irreversible, they said. There's nothing to be done. But human medicine has its limits, doesn't it? Benedita's faith didn't. She was still there, steadfast, waiting for the miracle. The whole town loved her, but over time, admiration turned into a kind of pity. Poor Benedita, they said. 30 years asking for the impossible. The impossible. What a curious word, that is. To us, it seems like a wall. To God, it seems like just a detail. But the weight hurts. And while Benedita prayed in her dark world, the city of Vale Sereno, bathed in the sun she couldn't see, barely knew it was on the brink of a much greater darkness, a darkness that had nothing to do with her eyes. How could those eyes, closed for 30 years, be the only ones to see the danger no one else could see? Life, my son, is like weaving a rug. We stay here, on the wrong side, seeing only the knots, the loose threads, the mixed colors, chaos. We don't understand the pattern. Dona Benedita had been living this wrong side for 3 decades. The sun rose, the sun set, and for her, it was always the same twilight. The years passed like water through her fingers. The rocking chair dug a deeper groove into the wooden floor. Her grandchildren, whom she'd rocked in her lap, smelling the milk, were now young men with deep voices, young women with dreams of their own. Her husband Antonio was gone, and she couldn't even see the peace on his face as he breathed his last. She only felt his hand grow cold in hers. The pain of that day, it was almost like going blind again. But her faith was stubborn. It was a small ember beneath a great deal of ash. There were days, of course there were, when the ash seemed about to suffocate the ember. Days of cold rain, when the loneliness hurt more than her bones. She wondered, has God forgotten me? Does my voice never reach beyond the ceiling of this room? Have you ever felt this way? Have you ever felt like your prayer bounces off the ceiling, that you're talking to yourself in a dark room? Benedita knew this feeling like no one else. She no longer prayed with the youthful hope of 30 years ago. Now she prayed with the weary but dogged perseverance of someone who has learned to walk in the dark. She learned to trust not in what she saw, but in the one she believed in. The city of Vale Sereno also changed. Up there, in the mountains that Benedita only knew through the cold breeze that descended from them, the men built something grand. A dam. A feat of engineering that brought energy, that made the city grow. It was the pride of Vale Sereno. Everyone felt safe. The dam was strong, modern, unshakable. Benedita heard the men talking about it in the square. A marvel, they said. To her, it was just another distant sound, the sound of progress she couldn't witness. She continued her routine. She woke up, drank her coffee, feeling the bitterness on her tongue, prayed her rosary, feeling the smooth beads, listened to the radio, and waited. Waiting had become her companion. She no longer asked to see the flowers. She asked for a purpose. My God, she whispered, since my eyes are not fit to see the world, may my life serve a purpose. May my darkness serve as light for someone. Don't let me leave without having served. It was a dangerous prayer, that one, because when we ask for a purpose, God usually answers. And it's almost never the way we imagine. The ember of Benedita's faith, covered by 30 years of ash, was about to receive a breath. A breath that would come not as a soft light, but as a thunderclap. The desert was coming to an end, but she didn't know it. She only felt weariness, and the darkness that seemed that night heavier than ever. It happened on a Tuesday. A rainy Tuesday. One of those heavy summer rains that seemed to wash away the world's soul. Benedita sat in her rocking chair, huddled in a blanket, listening to the water lapping against her window. The smell of wet earth was almost suffocating. The entire city was asleep. The only sound was the storm and the soft creaking of her chair. She was almost falling asleep, lulled by that noise when it happened. It wasn't a sound. It was different. Benedita, living in the dark, had razor-sharp other senses. She felt the change in air pressure. She smelled things, and she felt the ground, and the ground vibrated. It wasn't a thunderclap. Thunder is a noise, a rumble. It reverberates in your chest. This was different. It was a low, deep tremor that came from within the earth, a thrum, long and sick, as if a string on a giant guitar had been plucked very, very far. And the note was wrong. She stopped rocking. Her heart, which had been beating at the slow rhythm of age, skipped a beat. She put her hands on the chair's arms, feeling the wood, and there it came again. Thrum. Her bare feet on the floor felt it. It was like the earth itself was groaning. She stood still. The rain outside seemed to have held its breath. The silence inside the house was total, and the vibration continued, subtle, but wrong, deeply wrong. Anyone else, any of us, with our eyes full of light and our minds full of noise, would have said, it's just the storm. It's a truck passing by in the distance. But Benedita had no light. She only had silence. And in the silence, she heard what no one else could. She stood, leaning on her cane. She groped her way to the window. She opened it. The rain splashed her face, but she didn't care. She wanted to smell the air. The air was heavy, but there was something else. A smell. Beneath the strong scent of wet earth, there was a faint, almost imperceptible scent of concrete. Wet concrete and mud. Why? Why would she smell mud when the river was miles from her house, down in the valley? Fear, a cold fear she hadn't felt in years, began to creep up her spine. She didn't know what it was. She had no name for it. It was just a sign, a warning, like a dog barking at the moon before an earthquake. Her darkness, the sensitivity she'd developed in 30 years of silence, had picked up on something. The vibration stopped as suddenly as it had begun. The world returned to normal. The rain began to fall heavily again. But Benedita didn't move. She stood there at the window, wet and shivering. It wasn't from the cold, it was from terror. She had spent 30 years asking God to see, and he, in the middle of that stormy night, seemed to want her heard. What, my God, what was that? The night dragged on. Benedita didn't sleep. She sat, rosary in hand, but her mind couldn't pray. Her mind could only feel. The vibration didn't return, but the feeling of error was permeating the air like smoke. As the first birds began to sing, mingling with the rain that was now only a light drizzle, she heard hurried footsteps in the yard. It was Anna, her granddaughter, who came every day to bring her warm bread before school. "Good morning, Grandma," said the girl, coming in and shaking her umbrella. "Wow, what a storm, huh? You look pale, Grandma. Are you okay?" Benedita squeezed her granddaughter's hand. Her young, warm skin contrasted with her cold hands. "My daughter," she began, her voice trembling. "Tell me something. How's the river?" Anna laughed, a teenage laugh. "The river? Oh, it's full, Grandma, with all this rain. But it's weird. I came over the lower bridge, and the water, it's muddy, really muddy, and fast. It looked like there were branches, dirt, more than usual." In that instant, the puzzle fell together in the darkness of Benedita's mind. The vibration, the groaning of the earth, the smell of wet concrete and mud, and now, the muddy, debris-filled water. Too fast. She grabbed Anna's arm with a strength the girl didn't know she had. "Anna, where's the phone? Call your father, now." "Grandma, what's wrong? My dad's already gone to work," said the girl, startled by the urgency. "No, call him. Call the mayor. Call the priest. Go to the church, Anna. Ring the bell, now." "But why, Grandma? What's going on?" And the words came out of Benedita's mouth, words that she herself did not understand how she knew. "It's the dam, my daughter. The dam is falling." Anna froze. The dam? The dam was the pride of the city, unshakable. "Grandma, you dreamed. You can't know." "I didn't dream." Benedita's voice was a thunder, an authority no one had ever heard from her. He felt. "The earth cried all night, Anna. The vibration, the dirty water. It's the foundations. It's bleeding." The conviction in her blind grandmother's voice was so absolute, so terrifying, that Anna no longer doubted. She dropped everything and ran. She ran as if her life depended on it, because it did. Benedita was left alone in the room, her heart pounding. She had done her part. She had given the warning. But what if they didn't believe her? A blind old woman, startled awake by a storm. She fell to her knees right there on the cold floor. "My God, I asked you to see. I can't see, but I can feel it. My God, make them believe, make them run. Give me strength, not to see, but to they see." She didn't know, but the unexpected connection. The tremor only she felt and her granddaughter's story that only she understood were the two pieces God had used. The long 30-year wait, the silence, the darkness. All of it hadn't been a curse. It had been training. She was the only person in Vale Sereno who was attuned to hear the warning. The warning that the miracle she'd prayed for was coming. But it wasn't the miracle she wanted. It was the miracle the entire town needed. The sound of church bells, ringing, not for mass, but in despair. Distant screams. "My son, my daughter." Imagine the scene. A sleepy little town, waking up to the drizzle. Suddenly, the church bells, which only rang at parties or funerals, began to toll wildly. Anna, breathless, had found the priest, who, seeing the terror in the girl's eyes, believed her. People started coming out of the doors in their pajamas, rubbing their eyes. "What is this? Fire?" The mayor, a practical man, was woken by screams. He ran to Benedita's house, furious. "Dona Benedita, what's this story about scaring the town? The dam? It's impossible." They were all in her office. The mayor, the priest, a few curious neighbors. Benedita was standing, clinging to her chair. She was calm, frightening calm. "Mr. Mayor," she said, her voice firm. "I haven't seen the sun in 30 years, but I felt the earth shake all night. It wasn't thunder. It was the dam. She's hurt." "This is crazy," a man shouted. "I work there. She's rock solid." And as they argued, as precious time slipped away, Benedita closed her eyes that no longer saw. She turned inward to the darkness that was her home, and she prayed, "God, show them." And then it happened. Benedita raised her hand, and silence fell over the room. Her lips trembled. "Stop," she whispered. And then she spoke, but the voice didn't sound like hers. I see." The mayor stopped mid-sentence. "See what, Benedita? For God's sake." "I see water. Lots of water, dark, muddy. It's not the rain. It's the river. The river is coming. No, it's not coming. It's here." Everyone looked out the window. There was nothing, just the drizzle. "No," she screamed, and she pointed, a trembling finger, a blind woman's, pointing straight at the mountain she couldn't see. "There, the wall is cracked. I see." She gasped. Tears began to stream from her blind eyes. "I see the crack, near the tower on the left. It's not a leak. It's opening. The water is gushing. My God, the water is gushing like a mouth." A deathly silence filled the room. No one was breathing. That's when a guard, who had gone to check Anna's radio call, rushed into the house, his face white as a sheet. He didn't even see Benedita. He looked straight at the mayor. "Mayor, the dam, the left tower, has a crack. The lookouts are reporting that. It's going to give way. It's going to give way." The mayor looked from the guard to the trembling, blind old woman, to her finger, still pointing at the mountain, describing exactly the scene she could not, for the life of her, see. He didn't wait any longer. "Ring the bells! Ring everything! General evacuation! To the hills! Now! Get everyone out of the house!" The town of Vale Sereno was in a panic, but it was a panic with direction. The warning had come in time. Mothers grabbed their children, men helped their elders. Everyone ran, up the steep streets, toward the hills, away from the valley. They took Dona Benedita. They carried her in her chair, and when they reached the highest point, safely, they stopped and looked back. They listened. First, there was a roar that wasn't thunder. It was the roar of the end of the world, and then they saw it. The wall of water and mud, with the force of 1,000 thunderclaps, came crashing down the mountain, uprooting trees, swallowing houses, wiping Serene Valley off the map in less than a minute. Where they had all been minutes before was now a raging sea. They were all saved. All of them. Because of her. The mayor approached Benedita, who was crying silently, her face turned toward the sound of destruction. "Dona Benedita, how did you see?" Benedita wiped away her tears, and for the first time in 30 years, she smiled. A smile that came from a place much deeper than her eyes. "I did not see my son," she whispered. "I asked him for 30 years to let me see, and today he did not open my eyes. Today, he used mine." The miracle had happened. It wasn't the miracle of sight, it was the miracle of vision. A long pause, the sound of calm breathing, You know, my son, my daughter, we spend our whole lives asking God for the things we think we need. We ask for health, we ask for money, we ask to see the sun, like Dona Benedita, and we stay there in our own private desert, thinking he's not listening. But Benedita's story, it teaches me something. Sometimes prayer isn't answered with a yes the way we want. Sometimes the answer is wait, and that wait, those 30 years, weren't a punishment. They were a preparation. God didn't cure her blindness. He used her darkness to make her sensitive. He used her silence so she could hear the groaning of the earth. While the entire city was distracted by the light, by the noise, by the reliance on the strong tower they had built, the only person who, truly via the danger, was the only one who couldn't see it. How many times in our lives do we look at what we lack, at our blindness, and think it's our greatest weakness? It could be an illness. It could be a loss. It could be a dream that didn't come true. We look at that and feel sorry for ourselves. But what if this greatest weakness of yours is exactly the instrument that God is sharpening? What if it is precisely in this pain, in this silence, that He is preparing you for your greatest purpose? Dona Benedita didn't get what she wanted. She got what the city needed. Her faith, built on 30 years of darkness, didn't save her eyes. It saved the lives of thousands. I don't know which dam is about to burst in your life. I don't know which prayer you've been saying for 30 years that seems to go unheard. But I want you to think about Dona Benedita. Maybe God isn't taking long. Maybe He's preparing you. Her story touches me in a deep way. And you? What did you feel hearing that? Have you ever had a prayer that was answered in a way you never, ever imagined? A way that, at the time, you didn't even understand, but that later, you saw was exactly what you needed? I'd love to read your story. Leave it here in the comments. Let's share these hidden blessings. Your story could be the light someone in another home needs today. And if this story of faith warmed your heart, leave your amen. Leave a like. It really helps spread these messages. And if you're not yet part of our family, subscribe to the channel. Pull up a chair. There's always a hot coffee and a good story of faith waiting for you. May God know